Hey everyone, it is Gabrielle again with This Millennial Nation, and today we're joined with Stephanie Burns, who is the founder of Chic CEO. Chic CEO seeks to empower female entrepreneurs around the world with the information that we need, the network that we need, and the confidence that we need to really take our business and our business dreams to the next level. So, Stephanie, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
So I have got to ask you, how did you come up with the idea for Chic CEO?
Well, actually, it was around 2008, and all of my girlfriends were getting laid off. If you remember, 2008 was when everyone was losing their jobs and their homes, and everyone was freaking out. And so at the time, I was in grad school. I was getting my MBA, and all of my girlfriends kept coming up to me saying, hey, how do I start a business? I just got laid off. I need to make some income. And I kept saying, I don't know. Why are you asking me this? And they said, well, are you getting your MBA? Aren't you learning how to start a business? And I said, no, I'm learning how to run a business. I'm learning high-level concepts like global marketing and strategic management, economics and accounting and those kinds of things. I'm not learning, the ABCs of getting a business started on how to go down to the courthouse and which piece of paper should you file and what kind of legal entity should you be and how should you be saving for your taxes. Those are not things that I was learning. And so I kept getting this question over and over and over again. So I finally brought all of my girlfriends who were asking me these questions over to my house. I put them in my living room. I gave them a bunch of wine and I just asked them a ton of questions. What are you missing? What do you need? What resources are you going to? And a lot of them just stared at me blankly. They were Google searching or they're asking their dad. That was the only answers I could get out of them. And I thought, here I have all of these women. I had about 15 of my friends, just my friends, in my living room in their late 20s, early 30s, who were brilliant, who were savvy, who were driven, who were gorgeous, who were smart, amazing, amazing women who literally could not find this ground level information on how to get a business started. And businesses are started every day by the hundreds of thousands even. And how could this information not be anywhere? So I started looking around for a resource for them. I couldn't find anything that I really liked. And I thought, well, maybe I'll just make this my final project for grad school. And that's what I did. So I started it for those 15 women. And today we have about 90,000 women in our network. So I knew that I really built it for them, and I knew that people wanted it, but I didn't realize how many people needed it. So they were the ones who helped me start it. They were the ones I created it for.
So I love that transition of finding people, even people as close to you as your best friends that actually needed something, and you coming up with a solution for something that they needed so desperately. For you said that you were in grad school when you kind of discovered this opportunity. When did it transition from a class project to a career?
When I got laid off. So after I graduated, I put it, on the shelf, just like most people do. And then I was working full time while going to grad school at night. And then a few months later, I got laid off. So I got laid off in November of 2009. I worked for an amazing company called Bulldog Drummond. They're an innovation consultancy in San Diego. And my boss, again, it was the recession. Everybody was losing their jobs and work was down. And he said, Stephanie, it's time for you to go and be you. This is not me letting you go from here. Like, you have to go be who you're going to be. And he was right. It was time for me to go and actually pursue what I wanted to pursue, which was Chic CEO. So I literally went home that night. I grabbed the plan and I started working on it. In February of 2010, my little brother and I got cast to be contestants on the Wheel of Fortune, and we won some money. We won about $12,000 between the two of us. So I took my half, and that's how I got Chic CEO started. That's how I got the website built, and I used all of 2010 to create, plan, launch, and write Chic CEO. And in December of 2010, we went live, hit the button and went live to the world. So it took a little while,
I
but
have interviewed a lot of CEOs, innovators, entrepreneurs, and you are the first person to ever say that you won Wheel of Fortune. And that is how you funded your startup. Most people are like, how do I get money? It's not as easy as just winning the lottery. You're like, no, it wasn't the lottery. It was Wheel of Fortune, silly.
Wheel of Fortune. And, you know, it just goes to show that we can be super scrappy and super resourceful, and you can find alternative ways to get to the end goal. It doesn't have to be through an angel investor or a VC fund or an accelerator program. Those are all great and wonderful. But there are lots and lots of ways for you to reach your end goal. Maybe going on Wheel of Fortune is one of them. But, you know, it just goes to show that if you get scrappy, some things will happen.
So speaking of scrappiness is one of those things that I really see across the board in this next generation entrepreneurship, where it's, you know, you have to create and be innovative and find money where it might not necessarily be. What other trends are you noticing in this next generation of entrepreneurs that's different than entrepreneurship in the past?
Well, you know, I think the millennial generation is interesting in that you guys bring a lot of energy to what you're doing, and energy is important to what, you know, you're working on. So it's not just about the bottom line. It's not just about profit. It's really about how you feel and what you're bringing into the world and the kind of impact that you want to make. So that's what's really wonderful about the millennial generation and the kinds of things that they're trying to build. On the other hand of that, if I will, one of the criticisms is that what I see a lot is the mantra of follow your passion and the money will come. And I think that does a huge disservice to the millennial generation, huge disservice, because it's really not about following your passion, the money will come. It's about going out and making sales, and that's where the money will come. You know, there's a lot of different things that we have to do that are actually actionable to make things happen for our companies and our businesses than just, you know, following our passion and the touchy-feely thing. So I feel like there's a balance that's kind of happening. And I think the millennials feel that too. They definitely want to do something impactful. And they're, you know, starting to wake up to the fact that there are actionable things that have to be done along the way. So that's the two sides of energy work that I'm seeing happening right now.
No, I could not agree more. And I joke around that you can't hug your spreadsheet because it's not going to hug you back. But you
or
can,
your awards or your press accolades or anything like that. You're right. Absolutely.
It doesn't pay the bills, and it doesn't pay your employees either. And there are those moments, and we're noticing a lot of the millennials that we're connecting with that they didn't expect to be an entrepreneur. They just kind of fell into it, much like you know, based off of economic reasons or, you know, emerging from school and the job that you went to school for doesn't exist or isn't hiring. You're now kind of this newfound entrepreneur. But for you, Stephanie, did you always think of yourself as an entrepreneur?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's what my boss was saying, you know, when he laid me off, because in my interview 5 years earlier, you know, he asked me, where do you want to be in 5 years? And I dead looked him in the eye and said, your chair. I was, you know, I'm a terrible employee. I never did things by the rules because I always thought there might be, you know, a workaround or a faster way or a more efficient way. And sometimes it was, and sometimes it wasn't, but I've never been a person to fall in line. And that was hard for me. It's always been hard for me. So, you know, I just don't do well in the employee or in the leader role. And I always wanted my own thing. And, you know, I never really knew what it was until I had these friends who needed something, and I knew I could be their cheerleader and provide that for them. So yeah, I always knew. Always.
So there's this moment that happens though, and you said it was for you, where you realized that even though you had an MBA, at the time you were getting an MBA, learning how to run a business was different than learning how to start a business. Mm-hmm. Can you share a little bit about what those differences are and some of the challenges that particularly young entrepreneurs are going to face when they're trying to leap from that startup phase to that management phase?
Yeah, I think there's a couple that really stand out. One is research and really understanding your market. I think people get really excited about entrepreneurship. They think it's sexy and it's cool and it's, everybody's going to be the next Mark Zuckerberg. And they don't do enough validation. And validation is something that you kind of learn along the way. It's not really something that you do learn in your MBA program. You might learn it in an entrepreneurship program, which are starting to pop up now. The validation really is a missing piece. And so the problem is that we go out and we try to create apps and we create solutions and we create programs and businesses and things that try to solve a problem that never existed. And what that is really called is creating a solution and finding a problem instead of finding a problem and creating a solution. And so that's kind of, one of the big things. And then the second thing that I think is missing is systems and processes. When you step into a company, typically it's already established and you've got your junior level job or whatever you're doing, there's already systems and processes put together. When you have your own business and you're starting, you are literally creating everything out of thin air, from your operations to your revenue to your sales. So there's no set process. And that is very scary for a lot of people who thrive on process and structure. Entrepreneurs need to realize that, when you get out there, that there is no process and structure. There's a lot of, roadmaps and things like that, but internally in your business, it's hard to scale up and grow if you don't create processes within your company up front. And so those are the kind of the two big things that I see.
And I couldn't agree more. When it comes to processes, they're not sexy. And it's not something that you advertise, and you're not like, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur because I really enjoy building manuals and then, creating to-do lists and then creating a whole training program around that. I mean, that's not the entrepreneurship way around it. They're usually like, we don't need HR. We're fine. We'll keep going and we'll figure it out. When in reality, any successful business needs to have that structure in place. It's like creating a boat and not having any oars or having, any sort of motor system. You can't just put the structure around it. You need to have a way for it to continue to move forward and to be successful. One thing that Chic CEO does a really great job is creating that community and that network of entrepreneurs to be able to support one another and communicate in that way. How do you see technology really enabling a different kind of community and collaboration within entrepreneurship?
Well, that's kind of the fun thing. When we created our very first membership program for Chic CEO, it was back in 2011, I think, or 2012. And, I was expecting that women would just be there from the US, and we had women that wanted to buy into the program in Serbia and Dubai and Australia and Canada. And so we weren't really expecting to have this global community pop up. But it was really fun. I mean, I have a client who's in Estonia now. She's trying to push female entrepreneurship forward there, model it after the US. So, I mean, it's really technology. Thank goodness we have technology, because it really enables us to communicate with one another, share ideas, especially for my client in Estonia. She has such a long road ahead of her in terms of changing the paradigm over there. And, she has a contact over here. It's a Skype phone call away to try and make big change. So yeah, technology has been integral in what we're doing. When I created the company, all I wanted was a company where all I needed was my computer and my phone, so that I could be anywhere, do anything, and still make the kind of impact that I wanted. So it's a huge portion of our business and a lot of people's businesses, and I'm very grateful for it. Yeah.
What would you say are the top 3 challenges that your clients are facing being female CEOs, and how do you seek to fulfill them?
Ooh, good question. A lot of okay, so women, we tend to be a bit risk averse because when we see each other or when we see ourselves getting into business, we don't see it as, hey, I'm Stephanie and I'm going to go start a business today. I see it as, hey, I'm Stephanie with my husband Christian, with my baby, my new baby, going on this journey, and potentially maybe my little brother and my parents who have to, so we don't see it as just ourselves going on this journey. We see it as us taking along everyone we love with us on this journey. So we tend to be a little more risk averse. We don't jump in without knowing answers or finding, the research that we need. And so that can make us hesitate a lot. I think it's very much a good thing in terms of us being ready, learning what we need to know and creating plans, but it really does make us hesitate a bit. And that's just something internally that we have to work on. That's something that each one of us has to work on individually that we can't necessarily do for each other or fix for each other. So that's one of the biggest things I see. The second challenge, funding. It's hard to find funding. It's hard for us to pick up the phone and ask for funding. Banks aren't funding us hardly at all. We know that VC firms are only giving 4 to 6% of their funding to women. So funding is a huge challenge for women CEOs. But with that, I think what's interesting is we're trying to overcome that. We've got the Pipeline Fellowship now. We have Golden Seeds. We have Women.VC. There's a lot of different organizations that are out there wanting to invest in women. We have to go out and ask. That's the second part of that. The third challenge, I think, is probably, actually, I was at a breakfast meeting this morning. We were kind of talking about it, about how we don't necessarily ask for what we want or what we need. And I think that's something that as women CEOs we need to get better at, is asking for the resources that we need, asking for the big sale, asking for the new client, asking for the new hire, those kinds of things. So a lot of it's internal. I think a lot of it's internal challenges, because really externally there's nothing different that we can't do.
You were talking a lot about before about collaboration. You mentioned that you just recently moved to Austin, which is a bastion of this new generation tech startup. Things are moving so fast and changing so fast. It seems like the only way you'd be able to follow it is just from a direct Twitter feed to your brain. But how have you seen collaboration change even in the last couple of years of you starting and growing Chic CEO?
Well, actually, collaboration, that's something that I love to talk about because it's so important and it's so innate in women. We actually call it collabetition, collaborating with your competition, because it's so much better when we're all working together. A rising tide raises all ships. So collaboration has been a huge part of Chic CEO's growth. We seek to partner and collaborate with anyone who serves the same kind of mission that we do and the same kind of target audience that we do in an equal value partnership. But that's been a huge way for us to leapfrog in our growth. And I highly recommend it, highly back it. If you can collaborate and partner with anybody and everybody, you'll see things move a lot faster in your business. We did. So do it, go for it.
The best way to get known quickly as well, especially if you're kind of the new kid on the block, if you don't have the Rolodex, if you don't have the relationships, if you don't even necessarily have the expertise that people are looking for, connecting with people who do. I absolutely love that.
Well,
go ahead.
One side note on that too is something that I call the win-win-win deal. And I've created so many partnerships along the way through Chic CEO. And I evaluate every collaborative partnership if it's a win-win-win deal. It has to have 3 wins. So if it has to win for you, it has to win for me, and it has to win for the Chic CEO community. So this is a good way to kind of go out there and find yourself a partner if you need one. But people come to me all the time and say, hey, can I promote whatever I'm doing to your group? But it has to win for all three of us. So it has to win for the company, it has to win for you and the community. So if you write a new book and you come to me and you say, I have this great new book and it's awesome for your community and I'll give them 50% off, and you just send it out. But that's a win for you and that's a win for the community. It's a total lose for Chic CEO, because that takes up my time and resources. So you have to come to all of your partnerships with a win-win-win. It has to win for everybody. So that's been the most successful way that I've been able to create relationships and partnerships, and that's been the most successful way for other people to come and create relationships and partnerships with me. So that's a little tip.
That is fantastic advice, and I hope everybody at home is writing that down. And you're talking about having perspective and looking at something from someone else's viewpoint and vantage point, not just your own. And a lot of times you can do that from mentorship. What role would you say that mentorship plays in the success of any young startup?
Oh, it's huge. It's absolutely huge. And, going back to bootstrapping, getting scrappy, when we started Chic CEO, my partner and I knew that we needed some mentors. So we decided to go about it in a different way than the normal, just asking someone to be our mentor. We did interview series, kind of like what you're doing now. And we interviewed lots of amazing female CEOs and kept in touch and forged these relationships. And then that's how, we got Fran Meyer, who's one of the co-founders of Match.com, to be on our advisory board and, one of my mentors and things like that. So it's huge, and you don't have to necessarily think small. You can think very big in terms of who you want to mentor you. You don't be afraid to go out and ask and interview, and don't think that you don't need a mentor or an advisor from day one. If you're a small company, if you're even a solopreneur, absolutely set up an advisory board in the very, very beginning stages of your company, and you'll see a lot of growth a lot faster.
I couldn't agree more. One thing that I've practiced from the time that I was even an undergrad was taking someone out to lunch every single month who inspires me. Mm-hmm. And it is a lot of times someone that I know or I met at a conference, or sometimes I'll just cold call someone or cold email someone and say, hey, I read your story. I thought it was really fascinating. I'd love to get to know you more. And you're right, there are so many people who really do believe in sending the elevator back down to help other people rise to get to that next level. One thing I really wanted to talk to you about, and especially with your perspective in female entrepreneurship, is the role of teamwork and working with one another. Now, you talked about what did you say? Collaboration. I love that. Which, sometimes as women, we see collaboration is really great, but then there is also that competition component as well. Can you kind of speak to the power of teamwork and in selecting team members when you're at that CEO level, that you're bringing on people? How do you vet to make sure that they're going to be a good culture fit and they're really going to be solid members of the team?
Oh, that's a good question. We've been fortunate to have people come to us really wanting to work with the company, which has been great because that self-qualifies, right? They're really happy about the mission and they're excited to work with Chic CEO. In terms of culture fit, that's a hard one. I think that's that's a tough question. It's really difficult, but it's very important because they have to fit what you're doing, and everybody has to play a role. In terms of being the CEO of your company, one of the best pieces of advice that I've ever gotten was the CEO's job is to delegate, except you don't delegate the delegating. So that was kind of the way that I've looked at the company from that point forward after receiving that, because every single person in the company from that point needed to be able to fill a hole in the need in the company, vertically and horizontally. So it's in a startup, everybody's got to do everything, right? From making the coffee to closing a big deal to creating a strategy plan or helping with social media. So it's really about finding people who are energetic, enthusiastic about your mission, as well as willing to work on the menial things as well as the most important things. And being able to take the 50,000-foot view to look down on the team and make sure that everybody's in a place that is good for them and is good for the company so that, things can move forward. But sometimes, that doesn't always pan out. That's not always the way it works. You hope it does. But if you can find those people who are pretty enthusiastic about your mission and your values, usually the rest can be taught.
That is awesome. I often say you can teach skills. I can teach someone to be a great programmer or to speak Spanish, but I can't teach them to be a good person, and I can't teach them to be teachable. So hiring the right people and then figuring out kind of where they fit in the culture is awesome. So, all right, Stephanie, so we have reached the final part of our interview, and we are now in the lightning round of questions. So if you're ready, I'm going to start firing off a couple of questions for you to answer.
Sure.
All right, so the first one is, what do you know now that you wish that you knew back then when you were first starting your company?
How important sales is. Sales, 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 and more sales. You have to go out and sell. Sorry.
It's the only way to make money, or Wheel of Fortune. There's. All right, second question. You kind of answered it, but maybe a different piece of advice. But what's the best piece of business advice that you have ever received?
Oh, besides not delegating the delegating, that's probably the best piece of advice, that I've gotten to date. And not to take things personally. Everything's a storm in a teacup. It really is. Everything's a storm in a teacup. So calm down and keep going. You're fine. Just go. Yeah.
Take a couple breaths and keep moving along. Nothing's that big of a deal.
Really not.
All right. Next question. What are you reading right now? And what would you suggest that our viewers read as well?
Better Than Before by Gretchen Rubin. Great book about habits and motivation. So the way that we respond to our own expectations or external expectations, and figuring out what kind of a person you are can really help you achieve your goals. So I'm somebody who she coins as an obliger. I meet outer expectations other people have of me, but I don't meet my inner expectations like, hey, I want to work out every day or whatnot. I'll put my own expectations on the back burner to make sure other people's are held. But and say my husband, he's an upholder, which means he will, hey, I said I was going to work out, so I'm going to work out, plus I'm going to do what everybody else says. So and then there's other ones like the rebel who resist every single kind of expectation, and then the questioners who question every single expectation. So it's really insightful book on how we respond to outer and inner expectations, and I think it's a great book, especially for entrepreneurs, for sure.
That is awesome. I think that it's so important for us as entrepreneurs to take an introspective look at what's going on inside. A lot of times being an entrepreneur, you feel like you're putting out little tiny fires constantly in everybody else's yard when your own house is ablaze. So making sure that you've got everything on the inside figured out, and taking those moments to be self-reflective and taking care of yourself. So I think that is awesome. So Better Than Before.
Yes,
put that on your list.
Rubin. Yep.
All right, last question. It's kind of silly, but it's one that I ask everybody. So Stephanie, if the 12-year-old version of you were to walk into your office and see what you do for a living now, what would you think about what you do?
What would I think about what I do? I'd probably think that it was pretty cool that I get to hang out with my dog all day and work from home. They probably would have thought that it was much more exciting a couple years ago when I was traveling more and speaking more and doing things like that. She'd probably think I was pretty boring these days, now that have a family and being an adult and doing all those adult stuff. But yeah, my 12-year-old self really wanted to be an entrepreneur anyway. So she'd probably high five me for that, hopefully.
I bet that she would. Stephanie, thank you so much for taking the time and talking to us about your awesome company, Chic CEO, that's really challenging women around the world to become better versions of themselves and to get the training, get the network, and get the perspective that they need to be successful. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Thanks.